Welcome again, Keepers of Light, and I call you that because you are just that, Keepers of Light. And I am welcoming our spirit families of the highest resonance to Source in this space here with us now so that we may receive what messages are of the highest alignment to Source. Okay, so I do have notes again because I received a download a couple days ago, but I wasn't able to record at the time, and so here we are now. I am going to read the first thing that I wrote here was human system upgrades. And what I was getting at the time was this need for me to just say it because that's what's happening, is that we are at this period of time where we're receiving a collective human system upgrade. And it is really kind of in conjunction to the technology having arrived at a point of result because there's been access to technology at this rate where it's affecting our ability to see one another, what is reflected that is happening internally within us, on the outer in the outer world. And so this goes for like any type of experience that you would be experiencing where you are describing it as a hard time. It really kind of doesn't matter how that looks like, but what we are now seeing is that what appears to be like a hard time externally speaking, that the world is really kind of going through a hard time. But the guides are here prompting me to remind myself how it is more of an internal upgrade to our systems of beliefs that is occurring, that the outer pictures and stories and happenings of what we are experiencing, as a collective, as we view externally what is occurring in our communities and in our families, is really just a reflection of what is occurring internally. And this is kind of like the central message to this transmission. There is advice that I also have written here that I will kind of go into in a little bit, but I wanted to just kind of paint this picture from that vibrational stance, in that when you're kind of looking at situations that are occurring in your life, it doesn't really matter what those situations are. They're really just an expression of vibration. They're just an expression of frequency. And what you're feeling is also the same. It is an expression of frequency. And the intensity by which you are feeling the frequency then really is what is determining what type of emotion that you are engaged in, what type of frequency of emotion that you're engaged in. And so we will have like the lower frequency range of emotions and the higher frequency range of emotions. But what we pay more attention to is the lower frequency range of information, because it does have a more solid way of appearing and showing up, a more concrete way of establishing itself as a form of experience to us. And so right now there is a culmination point like a boiling point whereby we are all becoming witness to one another's sense of belief structures that are creating experiences that would be more of the lower frequency range of experiences. Yet we have an upgrade to our technology, which really kind of contradicts this level of low frequency entrainment of experience that we've been conditioned to. There is an upgrade to the technology which allows us to see this contradiction in such a way where there's this big gap and a sort of internal incongruencies that we are experiencing within ourselves, and we will be seeing how there are many who will be affected in their ability to not be able to handle the differences and the variance of emotions that are happening to them internally, will then go out to externalize those same frequencies and emotions. But you, as a keeper of light, you are here because you are here to receive these words that what is being advised is an internal uh, focus to your to the to the presence of frequencies that are playing within you, in that your ability to just you taking the stance and your ability to just stand back and view from this from this from this way of stepping aside and looking within yourself at what it is that you are encountering on an experiential level, what you are feeling, that what you are then determining to be the story behind what you're feeling, that that itself, you're becoming aware that that itself is just a story, and that it really is more illusory to its nature than it is a truth. And even though it really existed so as to support the level of belief structure that was relevant and necessary to sustain the level of experiences that we all had, that we all were having internally and in agreement to having internally, and so thereby establishing an external experiences that at one point were serving us, but right now they're not serving us anymore. They're actually, many of the beliefs that we have, many of the belief structures are showing themselves to be detrimental to the life force of the human being and the human being's ability to access that sense of empowerment within them, that which is really what we were all designed to have to have access to, in terms of creating the experiences that we're wanting to create. I hope I'm kind of being clear, because I feel like sometimes I'm just gonna keep going. So this idea of internal and external is really something that we've all heard before. I'm not ever proposing that anything I say is really new, but I am saying it in such a way that is coming through freshly from my vessel and from the spectrum of experiences that I've had, in that I come from my own unique set of frequencies, which may wind up coming through to you in a way that you are able to receive. excuse me, that you're able to receive the message in a way that benefits you. And so the key is that we are at a restructuring period of time, and you can see this simply by tuning into yourself and feeling what you're feeling as your internal landscape of frequencies, which really equals internal landscape of emotions. There is a prevalence nowadays towards the leaning to lower frequency experiences, and in that way we're finding that it's no longer sustainable, in that the functionality of our world, of our communities, things that once probably worked no longer work, and we're just seeing it in our everyday lives. I don't have to sit here and list everything because I'm sure that you will have examples in your own life about how it is that people are showing up, even when it pertains to the work that they have signed up to do, that because they are in a state of um, incongruent belief structure within themselves, they're not showing up in a way that will be in alignment to the higher purpose, that would serve the higher purpose of humanity, which is always about expansion and improvement. Um, and that's not to say that as we are now reaching towards for improvement, and as we are evolving in that process of reaching for improvement, that there aren't lower and higher level spectrums of conditions and experiences that are available to us. It's only to say that now there is a, like a way of living that has kind of resulted to this example of shooting yourself like in the foot. It's like right now we're shooting ourselves in the foot and feeling it, and then we're saying, all right, you know what, must be him who shot me in the foot, but it wasn't. Now I don't even know if I should be using the word shot here. I don't know, this is YouTube, so I don't know. But yeah, we're hurting ourselves and then blaming other people for it, and then not realizing that there is really no one to blame, that we are in this system of movement, and that the system of movement just equals that we have our part to play as it pertains to changing that system, and that if we are wanting to change that system, and if we are wanting to affect that system, that the way to it is not necessarily in starting from allowing the external to push us into that change, because the external influence will only really kind of circulate the same level of frequencies. But if we turn internally and we now begin to see the illusory components which were sustaining the old system, it is illusory in that it 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 no longer works. It becomes an illusion when we find out that it no longer works, and we're finding out that it no longer works. And so there was an illusion. This is an illusion that um, it works, because if it's not working, then it's an illusion. You know what I'm saying? So so we're learning how to see through illusion. Since I'm getting to this topic, we're learning to see through illusion. We're learning to peel back the veils of reality, which is this way that reality has been existing, as though the rules and the beliefs and the conditions and all of the ways of interpreting it were really a correct or truthful way of, or the truth. But one thing is, and I guess this is what I'm kind of getting as part of the advice is that there is a requirement for human beings to recognize that there is a flexibility and that there is a fluidity to the the access points of experience that we are here to have, that there is no permanence really, and that the acceptance to that fact that there is no permanence and that there is always restructuring happening, sometimes at greater levels, such as this one, than would be at other points of experience. And so, what we're finding here is that we're having to practice patience with ourselves. That it is one of the other vices is really to have patience for ourselves as we undergo this process, this evolutionary process of restructuring. That the other key is to remind yourself as often as you can, as you are experiencing the upheaval of change and the demolishing of structures that can no longer stand because they no longer have um, any strength of frequency to support them. And this is because internally we are all experiencing the disappointment, which again is like a sign of the crumbling. We're within ourselves, experiencing the heartbreak of expectations that haven't been met, for example, of of and that's a good one, so I'm going to stick with that one. Expectations that haven't been met, and you can fill in the blank to whatever expectations that you had at one point had, and are now experiencing as though it wasn't fulfilled in the way that you had been told or had been wanting and had been hoping for. It is not that anything has failed us, but that we are now at a point where we're having to relook those very same beliefs that we once had, which no longer are a part of the higher consciousness evolutionary state of beingness where we're at. Normal. It is the key is that all of this is normal, and that the bigger picture too is that there is no separation between the external and the internal. Although going to the internal does wind up being the way in which change will be observed at this period of time, because there is a need for newer frequencies to prevail as an answer to that which is missing and that which has really formed like a vacuum given the crumbling of beliefs. It is the keeper of light's work to be able to access those newer frequencies and then to root them into this newer reality. And so this is why you come to these words, is because you are really in that process of remembering this, that this is what you are here doing and that this is what you came here to do as one of your missions. And so there is no separation between the external and the internal. But even if there is not, there is also now a call for there to be a focus more towards the internal than the external, because there has been an imbalance within our human experience, whereby there is a more leaning towards looking at the external for information, and that looking outside for the external information now leaves a gap of information that has not been gotten in the internal. And so we're kind of restoring and helping to restore that balance. And as we do so within ourselves, we now share that information and begin to send the newer frequencies out to those who we are interacting with, and thereby affect the external in ways that actually actually result in a changing and an upgrading of our internal human system, as well as the external experience of that in the way that we are perceiving reality. Right, so I will leave it at that. Thank you, and until next time.